Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash, this is HeroQuest, and I've got the ultra-wide lens busted out today because I have a lot to show you. We're going to go over all the games that I'm going to pass along and give to better homes at the beginning of the year, and before we do that, we're going to be opening them up, checking out the contents, looking at the fundamentals of them, and seeing if there's anything that we can take for things like HeroQuest homebrew. I thought that might get your attention. That's basically the gist of this. Now, I'm getting rid of the games in unkind terms, but really, it's for a variety of different reasons. Each one of these just can't really stay in my collection. I have a lot of games, a lot, and I've shown this off in a members-only video, but I mean, you've always been able to see behind my chair the amount of games I have, and I have to clear out some space. I have to make room. I have more games coming, and I have more games on my list. So in order to be able to do that, we've got to clear out the ones that I'm either not going to play anymore, or games that I only intended to unbox for the channel or steal ideas from, or games that I got and were disappointed by or found out that they're just not for me. So to do that, let's start with Mysterium Park. Mysterium Park is a game by Libelud, and it is a much more cheaper version, smaller version, more portable version of the Mysterium game. All of the core concepts are still here. You basically have, what is it? Is it 2 to 5 or is it 3 to 5? I think it's 2 to 6 players, wherein one player plays the ghost and the other players play the psychics. And while there are different phases, and I'm going to grossly oversimplify the rules, the fundamental of Mysterium is essentially as thus. One player, the GM, the Zargon, whoever you want to call him, plays the ghost and has access to a series of cards that they are able to decide on to show to the psychics in order to point them in the right direction of what it is that they're trying to find out. The images on all of the cards are very abstract. There's a lot of like dream sort of visions going on, and that's exactly the kind of information that's supposed to be conveyed here. But it's up to the ghost to make choices knowing the other players that will kind of make them think about the images on the cards and find common ground between them. All of the psychics, which are the other players, look at the cards to determine who is the killer and where were the victims killed. Where was the victim killed? And again, there's a little bit more to it than that. There's gameplay mechanics to consider. So like, for example, if the ghost knows this one is the killer, then there are all kinds of cultural contextual clues on this card that would allow the ghost to communicate that this is the killer to the psychics. But anyways, we have a choice of who the killer is, and in a strange twist, the psychics and the ghost all have to win together or lose together because the ghost is trying to communicate to the psychics which one of these is the killer in one phase of the game. So we might want to choose cards here that make sense. Only the ghost doesn't just get to choose from this entire deck. They actually are dealt cards. And while the ghost can show cards to the psychic, the ghost absolutely cannot make any sort of communication to the psychics to give them any sort of hints, no nonverbal cues, no, yep, you got it. You can definitely at the end of a phase say that they either got it wrong or got it right, so everybody knows they're continuing on to the next phase, but you know. So for this bearded gentleman, I would, let's say I got these cards to deal out. I would definitely try to give this card to somebody. This kind of looks like a mustache wafting into the nose, and I'm trying to convey the white mustache here, but somebody might interpret that differently. They'll see the onion and they'll go after the Dracula-looking fellow because onions and vampires have a bit of a link, so I might screw up with that one. I also might try to avoid playing this card because the top hat looks like it could correlate with the top hat in this gentleman's picture. So, yeah, trying to avoid giving off the wrong clues, but you could be really surprised giving a card that you think makes a very clear link and then seeing your players interpret things differently and focus on red herrings that you didn't even think they would find in the card. It can be very interesting, to say the least. And saying the least is exactly what we're going to do because we're not going to dwell here. What are some things that we could do to bring this experience to, say, HeroQuest or any other dungeon crawler? Basically the idea of expressing clues to the players without giving them an answer so that they're able to all progress together or the game ends. Yeah, that's more of a design convention concept than it is anything else, but at any rate, Mysterium Park is just kind of a thematic version of its cousin Mysterium, and I like Mysterium. I've played it with my regular table of party members, the same ones that I play HeroQuest with, but I don't think that I would get any joy out of Mysterium Park, and I think my party members have this game anyway. So, moving on, Dungeons of the Oak Dell. This was a really cool single-player experience. All of the components are high quality, despite it being very much a print-and-play thing. I really got lucky getting an enhanced version of this from 2 Acorn Games. So I've got to clean off the marks that I've made from my previous game, or maybe I can leave them. Actually, I think they might be very telling. No, but the presentation here was really impressive. I really like most dice drafting systems that I come across, and that might be really one of the few things that I could take from it to say that would inspire hero questing, and that would be the dice drafting. That is something that I'm using in Project F to an extent. It just adds an entire layer of complexity. Anyways, this was a really good game, and I need to see what else 2 Acorn Games has got going on, because they developed a game before this, and I'd be very surprised if they haven't developed a game since. Alright, you know about Bloodborne. I have an entire video devoted to what I'm going to take out of Bloodborne, and that has mainly to do with the gothic horror elements of the game and the mechanics that aren't specifically Bloodborne the board game related, but more Bloodborne the video game related. Got an entire HeroQuest quest design video on turning HeroQuest into a gothic horror, although the mechanics that we use in that video for that presentation can easily be applied to a game of HeroQuest that is not gothic horror. I'm not going to open up that box. I wrestled so long with the idea of taking miniatures out of this that I wanted to keep, but I figured if I did that, I was probably going to keep doing it with other games. I was probably going to buy expansions just so I could have the models, and then I would sell the game or get rid of the game otherwise. And I refuse to buy price gouged, extremely expensive models from games when I can just spend a few more dollars and get the whole game. I'm only going to buy an expensive model if it's like a Games Workshop exclusive or something that's out of print or something. But we won't get into all that. I've decided to go ahead and give this game away in its entirety, so I'll probably be giving that to my brother-in-law. Astro Boy Saves the Universe. This is one of those second-hand games that I had to have when I saw it because I love Astro Boy. But as much as I love Astro Boy, the game itself is kind of unplayable, and I decided if I had the chance to buy it new or buy a discounted second-hand version off of eBay, I probably still wouldn't, because the game itself really isn't that good. You do get to level up individual traits that Astro Boy has: power, strength, speed, and these can go down as you use them. And the idea of the game is to collect the different robot gears and the kokoro, or heart, of Astro Boy. It's for 2 to 4 players. You have a bunch of tokens, all your characters. I can go on to standees, really just everybody's playing Astro Boy actually, but we've got a huge 18mm die, robot gears that have illustrations of different Astro Boy villains on them. And then we have the board, and the board is really interesting. So if we open up this guy, it's like a 9x9 square that opens into an 18x18. It's kind of dirty from its previous owner, and it has these wheels that attach, and you're supposed to be able to just spin them, and the mechanisms are a little bit warped, so they don't spin very well. But you do have a lot of different results on the 4 different wheels. You've got Atlas, who has his own specific power, strength, and speed. Nerolite, the Repo Girls, the Champ, the Blue Knight. Lots of Astro Boy characters and villains. There's Zoran, there's Epsilon, there's Delta, there's Sammy, there's Robo MVP, I don't know who that is, and then finally there is the ultimate bad guy, Pluto. All of these spaces around the gears are actually the spaces on which you travel, and then the gears in between them, the blast-offs, they count as single spaces. And the idea is when you get low on resources of any kind, you can go back and try to land on a, let's see, where is he at? Dr. Tezuka space here, and get revitalized revitalized. Why'd I call him Dr. Tezuka? Tezuka's the creator of Astro Boy. Dr. O'Shea. Dr. O'Shea? Dr. O'Shea? Dr. Tenma. That's Dr. Tenma. Dr. O'Shea is the good doctor. Dr. Tenma is bad boy. And Tezuka might as well be a doctor because he created some purely doctoral level works in the field of anime and manga. Anyway, love Astro Boy. I think we could create mechanics in HeroQuest wherein we are being constantly battered down and our resources lowered, but we have a point that we can race back to in order to refill our health, perhaps our body points, perhaps our mind points, perhaps our ability to move more than just half of a die roll rounded up. But the game is not for me. Next up is one that I'm a bit heartbroken about. Dark Souls, the card game, seemed like something I would absolutely love, but I just bought it too quickly. I bought Dark Souls, the card game, after deciding the board game probably wouldn't be for me, and finishing Dark Souls, the video game. And Dark Souls, the video game, was a lovely experience. I've been on a kick playing all the From Software games. I'm currently playing Dark Souls 3, and I wish that I had started to play and finished Dark Souls 3 before looking at this product seriously, but this was a, I think, miniature market sale item, and it was marked way down, so I can't really feel bad about getting it. It's a card game, but there's a lot going on. You need a lot of table space, and it doesn't have characters that I particularly like in it, despite the love that I feel for Dark Souls. Vort of the Boreal Valley, that's the first boss that you fight. Then we have the Abyss Watchers, which that makes sense for a boss fight as well, but there are only 2 other boss fights in this, and that's High Lord Wolnir, who actually he's pretty cool as well, and Pontiff Sullivan, who he's cool, but really that's all they could do? So they each have their own decks. Now I might keep this one just a little bit longer until I've actually played it, but I'm not looking forward to that experience because the box says it should take an hour per session. I don't know. I don't know about this one, man, but I can tell you that just looking at the reference cards here before I even opened the pack, there was one little tidbit of HeroQuest inspiration, and that is the status effects. Now, a lot of people have tried to put status effects in HeroQuest. It's ripe for the homebrew fountain of ideas for sure, and this is a pretty cool way of doing status effects. Bleed is something that is inflicted. Next attack against this card gains +1 damage. For Frostbite, suffer 1 damage next time the card moves. For Poison, suffer 1 damage at the end of next activation, regardless of what the card does. And Inflict Stagger, suffer 1 damage next time the card attacks. So, just this here put it very clearly that there's a number of ways that you can apply status effects in a game as simple as HeroQuest, even when the only consequence is that you're going to lose a body point. The body point that you lose could be based on a variety of different actions that you take, and Poison is like, you know, at the end of the turn, no matter what, you're gonna lose a health. And since HeroQuest, you don't really have a whole lot of health to play with, it might make more sense to have like a separate sort of poison meter that when it fills up, you lose a health, and then the poison meter resets. But it's still there building up every turn because you're poisoned until you get the antidote. You could also do poison the way that Tin Helm and Iron Helm do it, or Tin Realm anyway, and that's you get a poison token on your character. It doesn't do anything, but if your health goes down to that level, you will perish. So it effectively removes a body point and effectively removes a maximum point of your body points until you have gotten rid of the poison. But it's a little bit different because if you lose health and then get healed, that limitation is still there. If you lose health and then get rid of your poison and then heal, it's like nothing ever happened. Whereas if you apply poison on the back end and you lower your maximum body points, you can lose more body points and heal, but if you lose the poison, you'll be absent that health. So doing it the other way is a little bit more forgiving, just in certain situations, but there's 2 ways of applying poison right there. So you could actually have a poison, and then you could have a fast poison, which is a status affliction in some Dark Souls games as well. Deadly poison, actually, I think it's called. Frostbite is really cool. Suffer damage if the target moves. Bleed, the next attack against the target, it gains 1 damage. Stagger, suffer damage next time the card attacks. So the stagger's like, if you attack, you'll suffer damage, and we could probably apply that differently in the universe of HeroQuest, dungeon crawler, roleplay, imagination, immersion rules. But one thing's for sure, there's a lot in here that I haven't opened up. I'm going to go ahead and open some stuff up before I get too deep into this. I have another game off camera, so don't go anywhere just yet, but I am going to show you Block Mania. Some of you guys will have extreme nostalgia about this, I reckon. Block Mania and its expansion, Mega Mania, are games that are set in the Judge Dredd 2000 AD universe. They were made back in like 87 by Games Workshop. They have an incredible set of instructions, and they're games about block wars. Each player takes on a block, and then you have to defend your block, and you're basically just having a war with your neighboring block. And the Mega Mania is an expansion that brings it up to 3 to 4 players by introducing 2 more block boards, so you can have all 4 going at once. And we've got Happy Hour also. That's an expansion, adding robo-dogs, sucker guns, and trip mines. But Mega Mania is not playable without Block Mania, as you might expect. These are actually not the Games Workshop versions of the games. I mean, they are, but these in particular were reprinted, remade by Rebellion just a few years ago. I got these because they were in a package set with Ian Livingstone's Judge Dredd, which is another game that's a Games Workshop classic and was reprinted by Rebellion. You may still be able to get this triple pack from Rebellion's website. I won't link it, but go search for Rebellion board games and you'll find it. And shipping and everything together from the UK, while these were on sale, it was only like $75 USD. So it was like impossible to pass that up when copies of just the normal Judge Dredd were going for that much on eBay for the classic. And since everything is pretty much identical to how it looked when it first came out, there was no reason to go for the classic edition when I could get the new edition in a nice new box and also get these games. But these games aren't for me, and I don't really have a good way of translating what I see here to HeroQuest off the cuff, but I would say that you could definitely have quadrants of the board have block wars by having a different faction in each quadrant, and the base game comes with 4. We've got heroes, we've got chaos, we've got greenskins, we've got undead, so you kind of have a way to have that right from the outset on the classic HeroQuest board. The last game that I'm going to get rid of is 13 Dead End Drive. Got my microphone cord in the shot. We gotta move this guy. I gotta find out a little bit of a different idea there to deal with him. 13 Dead End Drive. Lots of folks might remember this from when they were a kid, and I'll unbox it here. This is the mystery game with 12 suspects, 5 traps, and only 1 survivor. It takes place in a house, and this is the board for the house. But this is not all, by a long shot, that the game consists of. There are a variety of plastic 3D models of things like chandeliers and ladders and statues and bookshelves and other things that are rigged with traps. So during the course of playing the game, your investigators will travel through this house and they will try to find out who killed Aunt Agatha. This is not at all unlike Clue, but there are 3D elements here. There's a lot of tactile stuff for kids to play. So get close to the fire and your investigator could fall into the fireplace and go the way of Aunt Agatha. Maybe ask her in the afterlife what happened. How did she get offed? But yeah, we've got all kinds of traps here that you can activate after placing these things on the board. And I thought it was really cool. I was going to do like a Will It HeroQuest video with it, but I honestly just don't really have the interest in doing so anymore. I'm really sorry about that. So back to the thrift store this will go. I did leave it in better condition than I found it. I repaired some of the stuff that needed repaired, put things together so that the next person who owns it will have a much easier time getting everything out. This will be a very fun family game to play with kids. And then as far as a Will It HeroQuest on this, that's pretty easy. You would just set up traps all along the board using the furniture pieces that come with the base game, and then you would be able to, And then you would be able to detail exactly what those traps do and how they off your heroes, but they aren't just traps in the normal sense. They have to be activated by players who are trying to be the first to get Zargon's fortune in that case. This is what the game board more or less looks like when it is completely set up. And it's impressive indeed, but it is a total pain to get all set up and everything, even if it is pretty rewarding to have your investigators. They're not really investigators, I don't really know what to call them. Your player characters all get bumped off one at a time. So that's kind of it for this edition of Would It Have HeroQuested? We'll never know. But we did take some valuable insight from each of these titles. They're all going to go to better homes and be found by people who will be absolutely shocked to get them. Well, right after I offer them up to my brother-in-law, who likely won't take very many of them because, like me, he's running out of space. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Comment anything you like down below, it really helps out. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video. Until then, have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye for now.